You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification button. And please, feel free to share the video. Thank you. The content of this channel is for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD, man. You tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, man. And it's the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up with no chases, man. I'm doing this straight up and down, no special effects this evening. I'm away from the crib, so. But at any rate, I want to thank all the members of the Green Gorilla channel. Let me get that business out of the way now, so I can get on to what we're supposed to be doing this evening. Uh, I want to give a shout out to True King 337, Anthony Davis, BGS Ibmore, Life of Commerce, Raphael Brown, Professor Carlton Jones, Rais Muajid, Lionel Jean Louise, Artisan MC, Desmond Brown, Donald 360, Kisses from Afar, Herbert Lewis, Seven Coast Dojo, Rogish the Billmonger, Destro 1, Pulpit 28, Michael Ross, Charles Rogers, Papa Didas, Travis King, Adam Williams, B. Hillfire, Rick Ross, Sandra Jean 955, Timothy Blewett, Brotherly Love 215, Charles Gilmore, Diego Harry, Patricia Colley, 7Q Pitt, Kwaku Asasi, Super Tech, Gregory Oliver, Greg, Antonio Feria, Barry Little, Alan Wiley, Mr. Valentino, Jason Hales, Black Men Being Brutally Honest, 77 Base X, Omni Americana, Cameron 87, Deshaun Nolly, Brian Peaks, Nelso, Apex Prowler, Kareen Henry, Doc LaRock, Jay Charles, Mark Holt, Lee Ways, Jeffrey Speed, The Face, Mark Swift, Show Me, Black Dog, Odd Collar, Donald Watts, Cozy Corner, Hip Hop.catv, Coach DC, Kashif Caldwell, I Am Black Man, Nichita, Mr. Blue Collar, Barnolis, Kyle J. Sura, I'm Just Jules, Brian McMurray, TD Hip Hop Media, Drew Main, Mr. Heat, Afro Shop, Sir Anthony, ML Law, Universal 178, Black Swerve 404, Rashid Barnes, Aaron Smith, DH, C Truth the Revelator, Gold Professor, Arthur Unknown, Dr. Tiasan Johnson, Kalanja Kala, Ricky Dawson, Cedric Bowman, True 7360, BK Born Shaheed, James Washington, Hostile Adept, W. Pierre 1, Marvin Battle Jr., and I can't forget my brother in heaven, Force Windu. Also, I want to give a shout out to all the people on the Patreon side. Jules Winfield, Romello Scuggs, Darnell Smith, Excalibur, Jason Warren, Soul Pen, Anu 219, Pursuer Prisoner, Taz, Quaker 217, Dragon 59, Supreme Ibmore, Adrian Hicks, Jay Bailey, Mr. Michi, Momal, and Asangwa. Shout out to y'all for helping me to keep this thing going, man. I really and truly appreciate your help and your support, man. That's real. And I'm not going to run through the membership ad this evening, but I am going to introduce a good friend of mine, man. You know who he is, man. He goes by the name of Dr. Tiasan Johnson. What's cracking with you, bro?
Chilling, man. How you doing?
Man, I haven't spoken with you in a few days, man. But man, I took that COVID vaccine, the second shot.
Oh, okay, okay.
Man,
it got to you.
man, bruh. It put me, I mean, the first 12 hours I was good.
hmm
But then I started to experience body aches. I
Oh,
got real tired. I felt really lethargic.
hmm
I started getting chills.
hmm
So I started getting headaches. And so at that point, I was like, hey, everything is shut down. And it's been that way for about 4 days, man, 4 or 5 days.
okay.
I wasn't sick for 4 or 5 days. It was maybe like a day and a half.
hmm
But I kind of read the literature
Yeah.
on the side effects, and it pretty much stated that if you are taking the vaccine for the second time, you're likely to experience these kinds of symptoms because your body is now it has now developed some response to the pathogen, that virus, we know as Rona.
hmm
So
hmm
that
Well,
shit put me on my ass.
well, first, man, I just wanted to apologize. Had some technical issues, so I apologize. It took me a couple minutes to get in here,
Oh,
but
it's all to the good, man.
yeah,
It's
but
all
I'm
to the
glad you're
good.
feeling better. Uh, let's see what's up to the chat. See, you got a full house going on.
Got a full house.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, shout out to all the people out there in the chat. How are y'all this evening? Uh, I wanted to get another individual in here. I'm gonna have to wait to see if he pops his head up in here. Uh, I don't have any other way of contacting him. Well, I do have another way, but
I'll check with him.
yeah, I have to dig. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag at the current moment. But um, man, so I just, I gave you the title of today's show.
Mm-hmm.
Also gave you a video to watch. I don't know if you had time to look at the video, if you paid any attention to the video.
I did. I had to watch it twice. I fell asleep in the middle.
You fell asleep in it?
Yeah, man. That's me. That's that's me. I'm allergic to feminism. So, but go ahead.
Hey, now let's just talk about, like, both of us have been educated basically about the basic tenets and principles associated with feminist theory. I mean, we've taken courses, we've been kind of indoctrinated with feminism for quite a bit of time, both of us.
Mhm.
But now when I hear, these terms thrown around, I just I find that the terms just they don't have any they don't they have no resonance with me anymore.
Mhm.
They don't impact me or affect me,
Yeah.
because I think that more than anything else is just a one-sided, a kind of narcissistic,
Mhm.
scapegoatish kind of way of thinking about the world. Okay, it's
Mhm.
it's a simplistic way of viewing, or a narrow-minded way of viewing the world.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
so wait a minute, we got our other brother here, man. He just decided to drop in, man. He did so in the nick of time, man. I guess he's like the Black Luke Skywalker with us.
They
You know,
had to issue some family discipline. So
Uh-oh.
oh
Uh-oh.
snap!
Uh-oh.
I'll tell you about it later. But
I feel
let's
you,
let's
bro.
put it away. Don't black, especially modern black females and discipline, man. The way black women are now and discipline, those two things don't add up, man. Okay, but I'll tell you about it later.
Oh yeah.
Man,
I got
I
to hear
don't even
it.
want to open up that can of worms like
No,
this
no,
second.
no, no, no,
We're not
no,
gonna really talk about black women per se today.
no, no. It's a
But
bigger.
this is a broader issue, and
Mm,
I was just talking to Doc, and we were kind of like discussing our connection to feminism, just as academicians, people who have gone through the academy and who studied this stuff.
mm,
Mhm.
And to be perfectly honest, I'm just being candid to all the brothers out there, man, listening. Like, I honestly thought I was part of the problem. Like, wait a minute, how can I be more equitable
mm-hmm,
in my dealings with women?
Mhm.
Maybe I am patriarchal.
Mhm.
Maybe I am oppressive. Maybe I am a misogynist. Maybe I do harbor some secret hate for women. But I never was fully sold on it because of the experiences that I've had with various women in my life,
Mhm.
as intimate partners,
mm-hmm,
um, as friends who've done some things that I would consider to be less than forthright.
Mhm.
mm-hmm,
And, one of them happened to be one of the mothers of my children who engaged in parental alienation. As there's a young brother who's up and coming. His name is Mr. Palmer. She was a baby mama terrorist.
Uh-oh.
Well, yeah, I know.
She used the child
Mm-hmm,
as a pawn
Mhm.
so as to have leverage over me and what I did in relation to her.
Mhm.
mm-hmm,
And if I wouldn't perform up to her expectations,
mm-hmm. No
then
Scooby snack for you.
she would do the Lucy to Charlie
Mm-hmm.
Brown, to pull the football away
That's
mm-hmm.
so
right.
that I couldn't see my kid.
Mm.
And that was my first kid.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? So the kind of
Yeah.
wonder and joy that you experience the first time that you can actually say, I am a father.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That all can be blotted out like an eraser
Yeah. Yeah.
as
And nobody,
someone's
nobody,
memory.
and nobody wants to talk about the trauma that causes a man in regard to his children. Nobody wants to have that conversation.
So I've been contending with that, for quite a bit of time. And so, but I have to ask BGS, man, since you're
Mm-hmm.
here, right?
Yes,
You
sir.
sent us this article.
Mm-hmm.
And the question I have for you, sir, is what how did this article come to your attention to begin with? And then why did you forward the article to Dr. Johnson and I
Actually,
and me? Rather?
since I have the Guardian not only in my news feed but also in my Twitter, and it popped up on my Twitter, and when it comes to this esoteric feminist theory, man, I have no better two people than you two.
I
So
got it. Okay.
it,
So
even though it's if I can cuss bullshit to me, but
Mm,
that doesn't mean that it's not going to hold weight in academia and in policy.
mm,
right,
mhm.
right.
So
So
that's why I forwarded it to you, because you guys can tell me whether the theory is valid or not. Okay, because I look at it and I look at this, it's goofy and it makes no sense. But the thing is that when you get into the academy, you kind of go through that bizarro mirror
Mhm.
where stuff that doesn't make practical sense all of a sudden makes perfect sense in the academy. That's why I sent it to you guys, because you guys are the bizarro experts, man. You guys can tell me how this world actually works.
well, see, here's the issue.
Hmm.
This is just my truth, okay, related to the whole issue about feminism, right, and their
Hmm.
complaints.
Mm,
So there's no denying some pretty horrible things happen to women.
mhm.
Hmm.
Uh, there's no getting around that, okay?
Right.
But in addition, there's also some pretty horrible things that happen to men.
Hmm.
On a regular basis.
Feminism only focuses on what's happening to women as if they are passive agents in the world.
Hmm.
That they're like rubber and they're pulled and tugged and formed into shape. And men are the ones who are doing it. They
Mhm.
don't exhibit any viciousness towards each other. They don't exhibit viciousness towards children.
Right.
They don't issue or engage in any viciousness towards men. So
Hmm.
my issue with it is, this whole notion of patriarchy in and of itself to me, it's like trying to perform surgery with a sledgehammer. Like, like, okay, we gotta be invasive here. What better way than to get into the brain than to take a sledgehammer and smash it like a watermelon?
Mm,
Hmm.
That's to me, that's about as sophisticated approach as they take to dealing with justice issues related to women. Okay, and the reason I say that is because women exist alongside of other people in the world, men, children. Okay, so to argue that only things happen to them and that there isn't an interplay between men, women, and children is
Hmm.
it's ridiculous
Hmm.
to begin with. But they keep pushing this fucking narrative
right.
as if all pathology has its origin, its source in hierarchical patriarchy.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And to me, it's just ridiculous. Like, I mean, how long can you push the same narrative? Now, I will say this, okay, outside of the West, you may have some particularly pretty blunt regimes, okay, like Afghanistan and the Taliban or something like that, okay, or Boko Haram, in the Middle East or Africa somewhere, okay,
Hmm.
but they're equally as brutal to boys and as they are to girls.
Worse.
Hmm.
They're
Yeah.
equally okay. They're even more. I'm glad you
Yeah.
you,
But
uh, you
it's
tempered my.
like in Afghanistan, more boys get raped than girls in
And yeah,
Afghanistan
with
on a
Boko
regular basis, and nobody talks about it.
and with Boko Haram, the girls are at least alive.
Yeah.
They'll
Yeah. They
kidnap
killed
the
it.
girls and kill the boys, and
Yeah.
nobody will say anything about the boys.
Yeah. They'll do. Yeah. They use the girls to have babies to be sold off, but the boys either they killed or they actually conscript them as soldiers.
Now, the reason this article disaster patriarchy. Now we can do one or two things. I could show the parts of the video, or either we can read through the article and explain to the people watching what exactly this new term is, this concept is. Which would y'all prefer?
Man, we following your lead, man.
Mm, I think it's easier for the audience if they hear it come out of her mouth.
Okay, so we can stop at any point,
Hmm.
okay, and we'll stop and pause, and we'll critique this document at any time. Of course, you're audible, so at any time you want to stop me, uh, because you want to comment on something, let's do that. Okay.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna
Okay.
pull this thing up. I'm adding it to the stream now. If it'll take here. Maybe I have to delete it and add it back. Are you guys there?
We're
Yeah.
here.
Oh, okay. So let me make sure that I got this thing going the way I want it to go.
Is it a
Man,
is it a
everything
video?
is kind of
Is it
jammed up right now.
a YouTube video? Or you got
Yeah, but I
audio?
haven't even begun to show it yet. It's just my browser. So I might have to refresh my
Uh,
browser in order
okay.
to make this thing play. So
Okay.
there it
If-
goes.
all right. So
It's
that's
just
not I
taking.
can
I
share.
guess it was deciding to take its own little sweet time. Anyway, it's gonna do what it's gonna do, man. We gonna get there. Let me refresh my browser. Let me try
Okay.
that, and then we'll get to this.
All right, Mr. Heat. Thanks for that donation.
Yeah, this is yeah, that's why I sent it to you guys because that's the beauty of having brothers like you in this space is because we'll read it because we're laymen. We'll read it and it makes absolutely no sense to us because it's on a practical sense. Um, it makes absolutely no reasonable sense. But thing is, we don't have the background or the training to decipher this code because I was listening to her and she speaks in coded language.
Mm. Mm.
And if it's the same YouTube video, I can share it.
Oh, well, actually, he's down.
Okay,
So he might be rebooting everything. Okay.
it could be.
Yeah. Well, no, but these kind of pieces, man, I'm allergic to them to some extent
Hmm.
because I sat in those classes for
Hmm.
man, going on 20 years,
Hmm.
no, I'd say about 16 years from undergrad through graduate school. I sat in those classes, I listened to that logic, and much like
Hmm.
Gigi said, I thought the problem was me.
Hmm.
I had matronly, mentors who were almost like mother figures, and it never dawned on me that
Hmm.
these women could actually be, giving me a one-dimensional worldview.
Hmm.
So but I didn't come to that till after I've completed my doctorate.
Yeah,
And
because women in religion, man, if feminism, especially to the upper class, black and white women have become a religion.
it
So,
very much is.
so they're zealots.
If they are, and it was. I think for me, it all started when I decided to look up incarceration in terms of the actual numbers,
Hmm.
because what they would do is play with the arrest rates. So you hear all these arrest rate numbers, and kind of go from there. But when
Hmm.
you really start looking at just the raw numbers, that's where I realized, I've been lied to, and
Yeah,
that really opened up a whole new
yeah,
discussion.
yeah, yeah, yeah. When I was
Unleashed a war on women. That's the headline of a new essay by V, the
And we can't
playwright
see
and
it.
activist who is formerly
There it is.
known as Eve Ensler. She details how the pandemic has led to a surge in violence against
yeah. If you don't have enough
women, as well as an
bandwidth,
economic
Gigi,
and educational
I can
crisis, with tens of
put it up there.
millions of women and girls out of work or school. UNESCO estimates 11 million girls may not return.
Yeah, let me just read the article because
But,
for some
one
reason
of
I'm
us,
having issues with this
one of us could play it for you.
Yeah,
if
one
that
of
helps.
play
Yeah, we
one
can.
of y'all play it for me. I
Yeah.
apologize for the technical issues here.
No, if
For
you don't
some
have enough
reason, we're
bandwidth,
having a disaster.
yeah,
Yeah, we're
it could
having
be.
a disaster going
It
through the
sounds like it.
disaster patriarchy this day.
Oh, yeah. But sometimes if you don't have enough bandwidth, it can happen. So,
You want to do that?
yeah, let me go ahead and look it up. Real quick.
Man, I
Should
got
be, should be in the email.
yeah. One
Yeah,
of y'all go ahead and try to push that through.
Okay, I got it. Let's see. All right, let me go ahead and share it. Okay, and you let me know when you
And then
have
I
me up
have
so I
to
can play it.
accept it.
Yeah, you see if it plays better.
Okay. So I don't see.
If
So
you
it's
don't see
not
me,
telling me. How do I know when you've
it should be at the bottom of the screen right
pushed
next
it
to
to
my
me?
picture. Yeah, it should be right at the bottom of the screen next to my icon. It should say BGS right next to my icon.
Yeah, I don't
See
see
the
it.
play.
Yeah, I'm beginning to see it
Hold
now.
on,
So
I'll be right back.
okay, so I'm deleting the other one. Okay, man, I'm having all these technical issues today, man. Like, what the hell, man?
Well, it could be
But we're gonna get through this, man.
it could be just a bandwidth problem.
I
If we
can't
can't
delete
play
the
it,
other one now.
okay.
It's just some crazy stuff going on, man.
Yeah. The thing is that this this thing has become to a point where
Well,
it's just
I'm trying to get
we're
rid
like
of
zealots.
the video on my end,
Okay.
but for some reason, StreamYard is being non-responsive.
Okay. Oh well, maybe we should just read the article if we can't play the
So
video.
I'm trying to remove it from my there it goes. It's not a it's being slow. It's being really slow.
Okay. 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 There you are. All right. All right.
Remove.
I'll see. Okay.
Be gone. Okay, now it's gone. Okay.
Can you hear it?
Now I'm
Can y'all
adding
hear it?
yours to the stream.
Can y'all hear it?
And that shouldn't have any issues on my I can't
Put a
hear it.
1 in the chat. Can you hear it? You can't
You
hear
can
it?
hear it?
Okay, let me look.
Maybe StreamYard is having some issues.
No. Maybe I probably didn't check the check
I
box. Hold on,
cannot.
let me do it again. Okay, let me do it again. Let me do it again. Let me share it again. Maybe I didn't check the check box. Okay.
What, for the sound?
Yeah. All right. Pull me up again. And pull me up again, G.
Okay, there you go.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, Amy Goodman. Yeah. Yeah, the interesting about Amy Goodman, she's a classic limousine liberal.
He said limousine.
But I mean,
She is she is
we
classic.
apologize for what's going on right now with the tech.
Yeah.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the quarantine
Okay, there we
report. Disaster patriarchy, how the pandemic has unleashed a war on women. That's the headline of a new essay by V, the playwright and activist who is formerly known as Eve Ensler. She details how the pandemic has led to a surge in violence.
So is it playing on
against
your
women
MBGS?
and
Yeah.
educational
it's playing. Can you make it full screen?
Tens of millions of women and girls out of work or school. UNESCO.
Man, my browser's not
estimates
doing anything right now. I
return
swear to
to
God,
school.
I have no control.
Other estimates put the total as high as 20 million girls. In her essay, V writes, quote, COVID's revealed the fact that we live with two incompatible ideas when it comes to women. The first is that women are essential to every aspect of life and our survival as a species. The second is that women can easily be violated, sacrificed, and erased. V joins us now from Kingston, New York, founder of V-Day and 1 Billion Rising. This year marks the 25th anniversary of her play, The Vagina Monologues. Her new piece on disaster patriarchy appears in The Guardian. V, welcome back to Democracy Now! Thank you so much for joining us. Talk about disaster patriarchy.
Good morning, Amy, and thank you so much for having me. Well, I would say Naomi Klein was the first to identify disaster capitalism. When capitalists use a disaster to impose measures they couldn't possibly get away with in normal times, generating more profit for themselves. I think that disaster patriarchy is a parallel and complementary process where men exploit a crisis to reassert control and dominance and rapidly erase the hard-earned rights of women. And I think I spent months interviewing activists and grassroots leaders all around the world, from Kenya to France to India, to find out how this process was affecting them.
Hold
how
it. Hold
Okay.
on.
All right.
and
All right.
very
All right.
different contexts.
Okay.
All right, so the first thing she tried to demonstrate was, okay, there's somebody who created a term called disaster capitalism.
Yeah,
All
Naomi
right.
Klein. Yeah.
And so ultimately that was about what kind of capitalist forces ensue when
Mhm.
there's a natural disaster such as Hurricane Katrina.
Oh no,
Or
basically, remember when whenever the 2007 2008 meltdown happened, and
yeah,
and people lost their homes and stuff like that. And then when you have it's not engineered, but you have a financial crisis like that, right? Then the money moves up. In other words,
Mhm,
the people
mhm.
that lose their stuff get bought out, and then the money goes into what they call rider and tighter hands. That's what
Right.
she's talking about. That's disaster capitalism in a nutshell.
That's
right. So
Bezos during COVID.
Yeah,
or it's basically people basically creating boards or walls around what they have because all hell is breaking loose. It could be a
yeah,
financial disaster. It could be a
yeah,
natural disaster, like
yeah.
a disease, a pandemic. It could
Hmm.
be a hurricane. It could be a whole host of things, right? Uh,
Hmm.
that create so-called disasters,
Right.
right? But of course, people who have money are going to look after their own interests to the best
Mhm,
of their ability. Okay, we
Hmm.
already know this. So that author was just trying to point out how unjust that is, or how it has a strain on poor folks. Okay,
Hmm.
how
Yeah,
how during a disaster there's a strain on poor folks. So
yeah,
what she's trying to do is make a parallel case that
right.
anytime there's a disaster, all of the rights that women fought for are going to begin
right.
to roll backwards.
Yeah,
Mhm, mhm.
Okay, because okay, all of what they're looking for is going to be eroded during that crisis crunch. Okay,
hmm
uh, now look, I will say this: do times get harder for women during crises? Yes,
hmm
because it's a damn crisis,
hmm
and they're going to be impacted by it. Okay, is it a crisis that only impacts or affects women? No. And that's the issue I have with it. Okay?
hmm
Well,
Yeah,
Uh
yeah,
shout
go ahead.
shout out shout out to Shonda. She pointed out we need to say fair use in
yeah,
regard to the video.
yeah.
Go ahead, BGS.
Yeah. Well, also, I just lost my train of thought. But also, I think she's trying to blame women's vulnerability, because in a crisis, the most vulnerable people usually get hurt, and actually more or more dependent on state and protections. And what the thing is that even though men go through the exact same thing, they're not as vulnerable as women are. Like a man being homeless and a woman being homeless are two different things. But
Well,
the thing is, go ahead.
I was going to argue. I actually think men are more vulnerable. We just don't care. You know what I mean? This is something I was talking about. I've been talking about for the last couple of months in regard to COVID.
Yeah,
All we've seen are these articles about the she session and about women potentially being homeless because
yeah,
of the lifting of the moratorium. But
yeah.
nobody wants to talk about the fact that men, most particularly black men, have
Uh,
been
yeah,
inordinately homeless before. And there's no way in the world going into the pandemic where you got Black America is half the country's homeless, and in many major cities, up to 90% of that Black homeless are men. There's
Yeah.
no way in the world that that improves during the pandemic. It only
No,
gets
yeah, the thing is
worse.
all things being equal, okay. If you put a man on the street and a woman on the street, her ability to survive and maintain in that environment is a whole lot less than that man. Okay, if all things being equal, but the thing is, all things are not equal until you get a crisis like this,
Well,
and then go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, in regard to Black men, we know it's very much targeted, and in this
Hmm.
respect, what's exacerbating a lot of this is
Right.
incarceration. Incarceration, because these are a lot of the brothers that are homeless.
Hmm.
This is something we've been talking about since before the pandemic hit. But my only point in
Hmm.
bringing that up is we
Hmm.
have learned to prioritize women's worldview and experiences
Hmm.
as victim, as vulnerable, and erase men's experiences altogether. And what we're finding in the research over the last 5 to 7 years is in how many instances,
Hmm.
because as Gigi started this session with, we were trained to see things in regard to vulnerability
Yeah.
as the sole purview of women.
Hmm.
So in area after area after area, really became mind-boggling how much of the time Black men actually superseded those numbers. And it was amazing to me how many scholars couldn't even say that. And when I would point it out and show the data, you'd
Hmm.
see this look on even like I've done presentations on my campus, some of which were primarily to my my faculty cohorts, my
Hmm.
faculty peers.
Hmm.
And they would be blown away at the data, but they would quickly go right back into what they taught before in the classroom. They wouldn't
Hmm.
change any of their positions despite being shown the data. But that's a reflection of what we have happening in society. And I think that's what's happening with Ensler here,
Hmm.
where she's
She's
used to this.
she's scared because women, they've been propped up and privileged for so long that
Yeah.
they have no clue what to do without it. Even though
Oh
it's
yeah.
happening to everybody, they said it's going to hit us really hard because we've been dependent on the kindness of others to prop us up. In
Mm,
other words, the kindness of men to sacrifice for us to keep us, keep our feet out of the water.
right.
Yeah,
But
and that's what
that's
she's going
not
through
how
now.
she sees it, though. I mean, like all what this woman is saying
Hmm.
is that women have always had to deal with the pathology of men trying to oppress,
Hmm.
exploit, dominate, manipulate,
Hmm.
subject to cultural imperialism and violence, right? And sexual assault of all different kinds, right? We've
Hmm.
had to endure these from men. And when there's a disaster, men go revert right back to the same kind of behaviors that they did
Right.
prior to the disaster. Okay, I
Right.
mean, well, not prior to the disaster, but prior to their emergence
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
equal agents throughout the world. All the gains are rolled back.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah. Yeah. Because the gains are artificial. I mean, this is not
Hmm.
natural. And
Hmm.
basically, in a disaster, when the infrastructure gets wiped out, there's nothing to support those gains. There isn't. So if you run out of electricity, and water, basically you have to still go back to using an outhouse instead of a toilet. Okay. That has nothing to do with you being with your rights. Has nothing to do with your rights. Rights get eroded. Your rights are actually built on the infrastructure that's already been built. If that's gone, guess what? You don't have. You don't have those rights anymore. They're not
right, so
inherent.
right,
Yeah, go ahead.
exactly. Well, so that's one of the things I was thinking earlier as I
Hmm.
was evaluating this piece
Hmm.
from this woman. And so many people in Western culture are accustomed to this concept of rights,
Mm.
right?
Speak
And
on that.
so the concept of rights comes out of the Enlightenment era, okay?
Hmm. Hmm.
And it was a response that this emerging industrial class had to the church and to the nobility in Europe. I mean, all over Europe. Okay, it doesn't matter which European tribe you're talking about. The Franks. It doesn't matter if you're talking about the Anglos, the Saxons, Doesn't matter if you're talking about the fees. I mean, so this emerging class had postulated that, okay, nature has imbued men with certain rights, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Life, his freedom, and he has a right to the things he's able to acquire by his own agency. Because if he has a right to his life and he's free, then whatever he accumulates is his. And if someone tries to take them from him, okay, he has a right to defend them, and even perhaps maybe kill somebody else if they try to infringe upon what he has in terms of a natural right. Now, the social contract tradition basically says that in order for men to get out of a state of nature where they have natural rights, which is not an optimal situation, at least that's the way one social contractarian named Thomas Hobbes characterizes it, right? He says that the state of nature is nasty, brutish, and short. All men are at war with each other. Okay. There are no police. You have to police your own. It's almost like, I don't know if you've ever watched The Walking Dead. Okay, that's the kind of scenario that Hobbes would characterize as the state of nature. Everybody is looking for scarce resources. The only virtues are force and fraud. So if I can take your resources, there's no police force, there's no armies. All we have is bands of people trying to survive. So that's not optimal, right? So you give up a portion of your freedom over to a sovereign, or a president, or a legislature, or whatever the case may be. You give up a portion of your freedom so that peace could be attained. Okay, that's the only reason why you give government the right to punish you, to tax you, and God knows what else. Okay, and so this idea of rights, to me, is historically context. It's specific and it's contextual. Okay, I just don't believe that rights exist in nature. I've never thought that they did. Now, but I think that in America and in the Western world in general, we've become so accustomed to using this language in order to talk about freedom and injustice that this is the only thing we can think about is how to blame other people intruding on our space, right? But that's not the reality of the way we live our lives. This is people infringe upon each other's quote unquote rights all day, every day. Okay. And one famous philosopher, his name was Jeremy Bentham. He's a utilitarian. He basically said, look, this whole notion of rights is nonsense on stilts. There is no such thing as rights. It's a human fabrication. It is a human fabrication.
It is. Yeah, I agree with him.
Yeah.
So men and women need each other to survive. That's my view, and to perpetuate the species. That's a fact.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as a group, and not just individuals, as a group.
Correct. Okay. There is no propagation of the species without coordination and interdependence amongst men and women. Now, men take a lot of risk, okay, when crises occur, and women take a lot of risk also. And yes, there is oppression in the world. Okay. No one can deny that there's violence in the world. Okay. But the only thing I don't like about the feminist narrative is they only characterize violence as something that has its origin in nasty, brutish men. Like women don't also play a part in the fomenting and the direct acting, or violence. I don't understand how you cannot open your eyes and see this.
Yeah,
Okay.
white women forgot that there weren't just men at those lynch parties.
Right.
But it goes even deeper than this, especially like corporal punishment is something that the average Westerner uses in order to discipline their children. Doesn't matter if they're white, doesn't matter if they're Latino, doesn't matter if they're Asian. Okay. People hit their kids. Okay. Women hit their children in order to make them do things or to punish them for having done things that they quote unquote were not supposed to do. Some of our first experiences with violence is at the hands of our mothers. I just don't see how that's lost on anyone, mothers included. I mean, in the Black community, you know the acronym, get your be, you know, I forget the exact ordering of the letters, but you know what it represents. Get your black ass in this Emma effing house right now before I beat your Emma effing.
Well,
Hey, everybody knows what that means.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody knows that it's your mama primarily that's saying it.
And thus, when you look at the numbers of abuse and homicide in regard to children in families, it tends to be women that lead in those numbers. They're the primary caregivers, you know, so you're absolutely right. But I also wanted to interject before you go back to the film. We should also look at where Eve Ensler herself is coming from. Eve is between second and third wave feminism. So when BGS called what's her name, the host,
Amy Goodman.
Amy Goodman.
Getting a limousine liberal.
Oh yeah, I mean in every sense of the word. That's what we called them back in the day when Pacifica actually brought her and the group on when they were still in a little firehouse. We called them limousine liberals.
Well, I'm just saying that she falls in line with that as well. She's very much in that camp. And you know, based on her approach and even her age, as you know, this white woman, she's very much she's second wave feminism trying to still deal with the existence of third wave. So she's in a very specific position and has a very old style, even within feminism, a fairly old style approach, you know, where white women are still, you know, really the primary group, but she's trying to be international to make her point. But she's still ultimately arguing for the advancement of white women through this kind of victim narrative. So I just want to kind of add that to the, you know, what we're seeing, because she's the lens for this. Not even Naomi Klein. It's just primarily her.
The other thought I had about this was that it reminds me of Sally Struthers from All in the Family, who used to have those commercials. And then she wanted to go on this crusade to stop hunger in Africa. You remember that?
Right.
Yeah. Feed the children. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember those commercials where, for crying out loud, she's walking through with a camera recording? This is not a time for you to record, lady. I mean, I understand that all of this was used for consumption for profit. Okay.
But that's why I say it's caught between second and third wave feminism. Second wave feminists, one of the marks of second wave feminism is they did not acknowledge the existence of anybody other than themselves. This is why third wave feminism came about, because you had all these other women and other sexualities that were like, look, we exist too. You know, that was the transition between one of the major transitions between the two eras. Sally Struthers, Eve Ensler, they represent that group of white women that slowly acknowledged that other women and sexualities existed. But they're still primarily focusing on white women's advancement. That's that transition point between the two. So even within feminist discussions, Ensler is really very old school in a certain respect.
It is rather old school to me. Okay. It's almost like she has a Marxist view, a radical second wave Marxist view of feminism. Right. And it's like a white woman's burden. You get what I'm saying?
Speak on that. No, explain that. The white woman's burden.
That's what feminism is. The white woman's burden is to make sure that all girls throughout the world understand that there's something inherently evil about oppressive men, you know, men, that they have this tendency to just destroy the potentialities of women, that they're brutal to women. And to some degree, you know, one could argue in other parts of the world that may be the case. Okay. But why are you the mouthpiece for this? Like, this is the thing that gets me about it, right? So and it's what BG said earlier. You got these white women in America who were part of the colonial project. They were part of the slave-based project. And then they want to pull themselves back from it and distance themselves from it as if they had no active participation in any
Right.
of it.
Your
And then not only do they do that,
Gucci
right?
booty foot. Yeah.
But
blood
at least
soaked.
at least I
Blood
can say
soaked.
her feminism is international. But most of these women, they're worried about money.
Mm.
At least the facade
Yeah,
of caring about women elsewhere in the world is present in this woman Eve. Okay, but most of these women don't even conceal the fact that they're looking not to change the basic structure of society to make it more equitable and fair. They're not trying to do that. Okay. Which is, one could argue, some of the more diehard radical Marxist feminists were at least trying to do that. Today, all they want to do is be included at the boss table.
But that's the thing.
It's token feminism, bro.
Contemporary feminism is a political coup. And when you look at black feminism, it is a political coup in an already vulnerable environment that is empowered by white women and the state. But the goal is still the same. It's about women's political advancement and power. It's about creating policy and resources being levied in their direction. All of this really is political at the end of the day. And earlier, when you pointed out how the very idea is predicated on men, I also want to add boys being a threat, because this is what they're fundamentally arguing. They're fundamentally arguing that on a DNA level, men and boys, males in general, are fundamentally oppressive beings. They are fundamentally oppressive beings that have to be guarded against from the womb because they are such a threat to women and girls. This is the level of analysis we're looking at.
And again, to me, I've always said inequality can come out of anywhere, any quarter. Viciousness can come out of any quarter.
Yep.
Okay. And so just listen. We'll play some more of this, but just keep in mind that I start off with the premise: there's pathology in the world and everybody participates in it. Okay. The way to clean up the pathology is not to paint one group as being like this Marxist dualism, okay, the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, or like a Manichaean dualism where there's good and evil, light and darkness. Okay. Now, most cultures don't really, especially before their contact with the Western world, they didn't have these kind of hard and fast dualisms. Okay. Most cultures didn't. I know Africa didn't. I know Native America didn't. Okay. And many cultures throughout the world, even, well, I don't want to get too far off track, but there's a complementarity to men and women. We need each other. We are interdependent. We both have the tendency to be engaged in vicious actions and pathologies. We're equally, potentially injurious to one another. But to argue that only men are being injurious to women, we have to be able to bypass this or sidestep this. But I don't see how we can at the current moment. It's like these Western ideas of freedom, equality, and rights, they're bankrupt as it pertains to actually making the problems that we have tractable. We're stuck in a rut, and I don't know how to get out of the groove using Western philosophy. I just don't see how. I'm just being honest about that. But yeah, fair use. We're critiquing this notion of disaster patriarchy, and that men are somehow waiting for optimal conditions for women to subside during any chance moment so that they can regain authority and control over women. Okay, let the tape roll, my brother.
All right.
Certain key factors kept coming up. One was that women are losing their safety, their economic power, their autonomy, their education, and they are pushed onto the front lines where they are often used, unprotected, and sacrificed. And I can sort of break that down if you want me to. I think if we look at intimate terrorism, otherwise known as domestic violence, has really turned home into a kind of torture chamber for millions of women around the world. I mean, we did a conference recently in France.
That's a lie.
See, this is the thing I hate about feminists and their discussion, especially this issue, domestic violence, which I think a lot of it hinges on this. A lot of feminism, especially third wave feminism, hinges on this notion of domestic violence being, the sole,
Yeah,
you
purview of
know,
women.
province of men. I mean, we have video after video, encounter after encounter, narrative after narrative, and data from social scientific researchers who do this work and have been doing it for decades that demonstrates this whole notion that there's like terroristic threats in the context of intimate partner relationships is a lie. I mean, it's not a lie in a small percentage of cases, but those cases are so small, but they become representative of the entire phenomena itself in the mind of the people who, watch, movies or see news reports. It all becomes sleeping with the enemy. It all becomes the color purple. That's not how DV works. But this is how, the media portrays it and these activists portray it. Okay? There's violence, mutual violence in the context of intimate partner relationships more often than any other kind. And that is the kind of violence that creates the most harm for both men and women. Do you understand what I'm saying? And oftentimes it is initiated by women more so than men. But we never ever hear them talk about the phenomena in that way. The only thing they do is to continue to drum up this, this hysteria related to the subject, and they never cover it accurately. And it pisses me off because there are a lot of men who are being subjected to violence. And then not only that, they're being subjected to state terror, which I thought these women were trying to dismantle the penal system because it was oppressive and unjust in and of itself. Okay, that like there's different ways, to restore justice other than, to basically remove someone from civil society, put them in a cage.
But this
Right?
is this is the importance. If anybody didn't catch the episode you did a couple of videos ago, where you were really analyzing Murray Strauss in a lecture he gave, you won't understand why this data is so sidestepped and danced around in regard to intimate partner violence and any of the academic studies about it. I mean, he laid out so clearly behind the scenes how this data is kept from the public, how it's cherry picked to only focus on women. If you haven't seen that video Gigi did, please check that out, because that really helps us frame why an Eve Ensler can get up here and do this and have virtually no pushback, especially by the host, because much of the data around, what people would reference to push back is not commonly known. And Murray Strauss covers why it's not commonly known.
Well, I mean, the first mistake, I wouldn't call it a mistake, but the first thing they do is they just leave the data out. They don't even talk about it or discuss it. If they don't do that, they just go look for evil men or they go look for evidence to prove what they're thinking already. This is why feminism will never be falsified. Okay, it's so if you're a scientist and you're a social scientist, either a hard one or a soft one. Okay, the tool to attain objectivity to some degree in to attain consensus to the most degree, falsification is the principle that you operate under. Okay, so what that means is any theory you propose, you have to be able to test and to and predict whether or not your thesis can be falsified or not. Okay, that's the way it goes. Okay, so when you falsify something, you make a risky prediction. Okay, that can either fail or it can either succeed in relation to the testing. Either it can confirm the test or deny your thesis. Okay, That's not how feminism works. Feminism works by saying men are bad. So let's go find all the evidence and dirt we can find to just prove that point. It's not like they're making a thesis that can be either true or false, right or wrong. They've already determined that they're right, and they're going to look for evidence to to show and demonstrate that they're right. This I don't know how long this can last, but it seems to have some lasting power, man. It pisses me off because there's so many men that are going through terrible experiences with women, and none of that comes out. It's as if they're poly purebreds, and like men are like Doctor Evil.
She that's why she's complaining ahead of time, because she sees this happening, man. I think I sent you a video about this homeless woman in Los Angeles, and she was explaining what the women go through on the streets. She that's why she's I don't know if she'll actually get to it. I don't want to get ahead of it, because she's actually talked about sex trafficking, right? She knows that these women are going to have to go out and sell their bodies. And she's trying to get white men and all men to actually sacrifice themselves, to actually shore up that safety net, so the women don't have to do what they need to do to survive. They damn the men. The men can go to hell. The men can die off, but they don't care. Okay, just like when men go to war, they talk. She talked like when Amy Goodman first entered it, talk about the sacrificing the ratio of women. They say nothing about the hundreds of millions of men fighting wars that got sacrificed in the name of capitalism and power. Women
As if
weren't on the front
as if
lines.
all men want to go to war, risk their
Hmm.
lives to fight over an imaginary boundary, and to
Hmm.
fight for a group of people who decided to have the war,
Hmm.
and when they come back, they really don't have much other than injuries and trauma.
And then the women and the rich folks actually benefit from their sacrifice. I had the this argument with believe it or not, a PhD candidate in philosophy, right? And we talked about this, and I taught, if she was arguing about men's rights and women's rights, I said, and why men deserve their rights over women. I said because the burden of performance, men fought and died in all these wars to actually and earn the right to actually have a say of what their government does. I said women never did that. That's the burden of performance. She couldn't say anything about that, which
See,
feminists ignore. They're talking about selective service. Actually, women have to apply for the selective service or for the drafting case. I said that, which should have happened under ERA. Okay, if you want equal rights, you're going to have the equal burden of performance. And what feminists like V don't agree with that. Okay, you have every bit. Women have every bit of chance as everybody else, right? Especially in this modern world. You have the right to go to school. You have the right to do everything else that a man can do. The thing is that what you want is men to sacrifice and pay for your rights.
man, and therein lies the issue.
Hmm.
Okay, men have always sacrificed for women. Okay, are some men brutish? Are some men nasty towards women? Yes, but the pendulum swings both ways. I mean, it's like the sword cuts on both sides,
Hmm. It does.
but
Yeah.
not in their minds. Okay, all they see is that women and girls are relegated to a subordinate position.
Hmm.
Okay, now maybe in some parts of the world that's actually the case, but I know they can't say that that ever was the case for white women in the United States of America in relation to other demographics. They can't say it. They definitely can't say it about black folks. Okay, and that's the issue that, like, I'm speaking from a contextual, practical situation. Okay, now I don't to hell with all these black women who come out and they say, well, we're being oppressed by black men. Something there's a thing such as black male patriarchy or black male privilege. To hell with that, man. there's
Hmm.
never there's never been such a thing in the United States of America.
Yeah.
Okay, and black men have never had control over any major institutions. And this is something that Dr. Johns can speak about better than I can. No control over economics, no control over education, no control over lawmaking, no control over even the familial
Entrepreneurship.
institution itself.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
only thing you could probably say was, okay, black men had some control over the church.
Yeah, but
Okay,
even that's symbolic. It's mainly symbolic
It's
because
symbolic.
you have men that are allowed to be in position by mostly women, as long as they cater to those women in a very particular way, and of course charm them, and so on and so forth. You have to have a certain amount of charm, certain amount of charisma, but it has to be focused on pleasing women at the end of the day. So even that in many ways is an illusion, but the major piece to this that I think women like V overlook is that as much as they talk about patriarchy, they don't want patriarchy to go away. Because what is she saying? She's fundamentally saying that for all these areas where women are vulnerable, we need society to shore it up so that women are no longer vulnerable. Well, who's she appealing to?
Yeah,
appealing to patriarchy.
Yes.
At the end of the day, women don't want to get rid of patriarchy. They just want to make sure it works under their rule. But they want patriarchy because it ensures a level. It goes back to what BGS said a second ago. It ensures that they don't have to deal with the burden of performance. Because if you have to deal with the burden of performance, you have to have your feet on the ground and you have to compete. Women do not want their feet on the ground. They understand that if they have to compete, if they have to get it out of the mud, if they have to actually perform, then they're going to find themselves in a position that's far worse.
Don't put that sword down aside. Keep chopping, man.
I'm just saying they don't. This is the problem with these arguments. They're illusory. It's just, BLM was the same way. It's aggressive asking. It's really all it is. It's aggressive and performative asking. That's what V is doing here. That's what BLM is doing. And as much as they're talking about patriarchy, they're appealing to patriarchy in the very arguments that they're making. But they don't want patriarchy to go. And Black community really illustrates what women really want. Because a lot of white women look at Black women and they envy one thing. They want to be in control of the patriarchy. That's what we have in our community. We have a gynocracy, which is basically a female-led patriarchy. The problem, though, is that female-led patriarchy is predicated on white patriarchy in order to function. Whether it's welfare, whether it's employment, whether it's the nonprofits that are funded by government grants, wherever you want to take it, private, public, doesn't matter. The power structure that these women are using via feminism to exact their viewpoint and impose it on the world is predicated on white patriarchy. And that's the only way it works. So the irony is they want to run a patriarchy that they need to depend on in order to be in a position to run it.
And what they need is police.
Exactly.
They need legislatures.
Exactly.
They need judges.
Exactly.
They need all of the bureaucracies, all of the executive branches of government, right? In order to work.
Yeah, the institutions,
policies. They need those, and they need men to enforce them.
Yes.
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 But men, like, again, this aggressive asking, it's been effective, but the question is, how long can it be effective?
Well, but that's why they're pissed at the manosphere, because the manosphere is exemplifying and letting other men know there's another option. You can walk away. This scares the shit out of these women. They never wanted men to walk away. They wanted to shame men into compliance. Manosphere is saying, hey, I don't care if you are a brother on the street who's hustling and selling incense. I don't care if you're homeless. I don't care if you're a medical doctor. You can walk away. That is not what feminists intended. And that's why the manosphere scares the shit out of so many of them. Because the implications of men walking away would mean women are in a far worse position. And we've seen this come to a head when we started hearing brothers saying almost uniformly in the last couple of weeks, winter is coming.
Winter's coming. In fact, the very thing that women on the street have to do is find the man for protection. First thing she got to do. She can't do it by herself.
And then not only that, you got to think.
Thank you, C. Smith.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Thank all of y'all brothers, man. Right now, I got my head tucked out of what's going on in the chat. But during a disaster, who incurs the most risk?
Exactly.
Yes.
Now,
The
are
men are the
women going
first
to
to
have to
die.
take? You have an equitable society in the U.S. Most of the force. She's going to make this argument that, like in the medical industry, women are being exploited, particularly nurses. That they're taking on too much of a burden. Well, damn it,
Mm-hmm.
you took the job.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you're supposed to do. Your function is to help sick people.
Yes,
So now what you want to do is say, okay, well,
it's too hard.
they're supposed to go home. That's like saying all men who are electricians during an ice storm, right, should just
Mm-hmm.
pack up because this is unfair to their integrity and their safety.
Mm-hmm.
They should not risk their lives and limbs trying to get electricity back on during an ice storm so that people can have access to heat. They should
Mm-hmm.
say, no, power their own generators and just leave it alone, even though they dedicated themselves to this vocation, right? They made the choice. This is what I'm going to do. It's okay. Everything is good during a time of feast, but when the famine hits, now you want to say, okay, well, women are supposed to just pull back from it. It's unfair to them. You never say that about men.
No.
You just don't have that conversation for men. Men, if the country's about to be invaded, if the ship is about to sink, if there's something in it that goes bump in the night, you're supposed to take on the risk. They're not supposed to incur any of it. Now, I'm
Exactly.
not saying that some horrible shit doesn't happen to women. I'm not saying that. But also some horrible shit happens to men. And
Mm-hmm.
men, for the most part, have been enculturated to take it up, to take that, to take on that risk,
Yeah.
to fall on that sword. That's what they've been enculturated to do, to
We,
Mm-hmm.
take
we
on the burden of making sure everybody is okay except for themselves. But feminism basically says that all men have ever done was only look after their own interest in order to just, play out their little sadistic games on people who are more vulnerable than they are.
well,
I just don't see the world that way, man. I
but,
just don't see it that way.
but we will see, even in the comments, brothers will reiterate how we need to take it, fall on our sword, and shut up. Brothers will check each other, even in the manosphere.
Mm-hmm.
And the only difference is what we generally do, and it's not really a difference. We do it here with the whole alpha puffing our chest out thing, which is
Mm-hmm.
really a way of trying to get men to fall back into compliance with sucking it up and being quiet. But there's something I want brothers to walk away from today's show with, if nothing else, in terms of what I'm saying. I want you to remember it's a very simple a diagram. In many ways, women have enjoyed the fruits of having government replace men, and the more vulnerable and that government has become, because it's in many ways it's been overextending in response to the pandemic, and so on and so forth. So what you're seeing is women and to some extent government trying to allow men to replace government again. So it's really a cycle. In one vein, women got real comfortable with replacing men with government, and now that government is in
Crisis.
question and in
Yeah.
crisis, they
Mm-hmm.
want to replace government with men. This is
Mm-hmm.
why there's so many women coming into the manosphere. This is why they're listening to videos and taking harsh critique and saying, oh, I'm learning and you're right. And I haven't
Mm-hmm.
noticed how many women have been doing. And I'm not saying that it's not sincere, because when you talk about hypergamy, women's hypergamy is such a central core part of who they are. It's
Mm-hmm.
not, we only have this idea that they're these exploitive gold diggers trying to take you for half your money. That's an extreme end to hypergamy.
Mm-hmm.
The daily hypergamy is the biggest issue we need to focus on. And daily hypergamy is in small bits, and it's spread out in society. And in one way you can see it is when women will change gears completely. They will drop this hardcore independent feminism in a heartbeat
Mm-hmm.
if it means they can live a simpler life with a man who's willing to sacrifice for her.
Yeah, because she's not begging that women do something. Okay,
No.
she's not appealing to women to actually come together and solve this problem. She's appealing to men to
Yeah,
solve this problem for her.
she is. She is. I have not heard her rally women yet.
Mm.
Well, she
She's
says
saying
she has. I mean, just play some more of the video,
No,
bro.
she talked to them. She didn't rally them. Okay,
Yeah.
she's gathering complaints. That's what she's gathering.
Mm.
And
Where
she created a
violence
play,
is out of
the
control.
vagina monologues.
Yeah. Okay.
We're seeing the same numbers in the U.S. RAIN was reporting, for example, that their hotlines have never been so busy. The same is true in Mexico. The same is true really in every country that I interviewed. And I think it's a combination of people feeling really severe economic insecurity, excess of alcohol, and this confinement has just made a perfect storm for abuse. It's hard really to determine, Amy, what is worse. The fact that men in 2021, thousands of men still feel willing and entitled to control, torture, and beat their wives
Ooh,
and
my
girlfriends
goodness.
and children.
See, there we go. The shaming.
I
Mhm.
mean,
The
like,
shaming.
and this is irresponsible. This is the shit that pisses me off. Because you have a woman, I don't know how far her formal education extends, but
Mhm.
everything she just said was a misrepresentation of the nature of domestic violence in and of itself. It's a
Mhm.
crock of fucking shit, is what this woman
Mhm.
just got through spewing. Okay?
Mhm.
The idea that, like, the very idea of family, right,
Mhm.
is the place where the oppression occurs. And you're right when you say these women, they want big government, okay?
Mhm.
Because that depersonalizes,
Yeah.
the kind of aid they receive or the kind of help that they
Yeah.
get. And so they're
Less
able to do whatever
accountability.
it is that they want to without having to be beholden to anyone. And to
Mhm.
them, that's what freedom consists in
Mhm.
bigger government. But the question is, if government is only helping you,
Mhm.
and primarily as it pertains to black men, we know what the government does to us. I'm gonna do a show about that, you know, especially about the judiciary and how they punish us.
Mm.
Okay, because women get managed through bureaucracies, of a transfer kind. So they get Section 8, they get SNAP, they get EBT cards, and all of this has to be monitored paternalistically by some government agent. They have to go in and they have to interview these people. They have to see them from time to time. They get to come by their homes and inspect, right?
Mhm.
And they
Mhm.
get to issue moral proclamations about what that woman should or shouldn't be doing. Okay, they're intrusive, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, but they send black men to prison
Yes.
or they render them homeless.
Yes.
So this is the way that they bifurcate us. They have us
Mhm.
on two different tracks,
Yeah.
two different trajectories.
Even the boys they take out of homes and put into foster care. You know what they give them when they turn 18?
What's that?
$200 and a place to go get free food
Mm.
and turn them out onto the streets.
Mm. And look, we're dealing with the artificial conditions of Western culture
Mm-hmm.
that have given, women certain liberties and freedoms
Mm-hmm.
to a certain extent. Okay. Basically, women have opted for careerism. That's their identities are basically centered around careerism or
Mm-hmm.
either dependency from the state.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Those are the only options for them right now in order to enjoy this so-called new freedom. There's no freedom of association, like freedom that comes from duty, no freedom from cooperation and working with men, no acceptance of responsibility for also being involved in pathologies related to intimate partners, or in just familial situations or domestic situations in general. It's all blaming men. It's
Yep.
all just saying you're the source of all the problems. We're just poly purebreds. We're perfectly pristine. Okay, the men are bad, we're good, we're victims, they're victimizers.
Mhm.
How long can this fucking narrative last when there's too much information out there about what's actually occurring? Yeah, I just saw a video you put up, Doc Johnson, where some woman tried to fucking run over a guy with a car. It was you and BGS talking about this.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
She tried to kill this motherfucker, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
If
Yeah.
she would have hit that man with that, if she would have hit this dude with this car, and clearly she wasn't doing it in order to defend herself. There's no fucking way that you could
Right.
claim to a court or a
Right.
judge in a court
Right.
in a courtroom setting, I was defending myself when I tried to hit him with the fucking car.
Right. Right.
Okay?
Right.
Or You know, like there are women pulling guns on guys, women stabbing men and shit. Like you had another video where the woman basically stabbed his brother and almost came close to his heart. Like if it was like
Mm-hmm.
centimeters away from his heart, she could have
Mm-hmm.
killed the guy.
Man, I have videos of women running over men with cars. Or just last night, I played one where the woman crashed her own car because her boyfriend was in it and she was mad at him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but they know they're not going to jail the way men do. They know this. They've not been socialized to think about it. Every man listening to this show has thought about, you know, in frustration dealing with a woman the way he would deal with another man, but
Mm-hmm.
has in 99% of the time has stopped because he fully understands repercussions.
Yep.
He's been socialized to understand it. Women have not been socialized to consider their violence as violence. They consider it as justified if they're emotionally frustrated, but they've not been taught to consider their violence as violence. So they act it out with no repercussions in many instances on par with what men experience. We already know they're sentenced to like 67 to 69% less for the same crimes as men.
Mm-hmm.
We know this. We don't even have prisons for women. If tomorrow government decided to treat women like men in terms of incarceration, we don't even have the prisons in place to incarcerate women.
Yeah, that's true. That's which is why they're decriminalizing prostitution, and going after the Johns and pimps, so the women are free to sell because they want to get rid of the blame and the burden of performing, the burden off of them. So so it's, they know what they're doing, but the thing is that, you know, and then they're going to blame that what's going on is sex trafficking because women shouldn't have to sell their bodies. The government should step in and provide jobs and other kind of resources for them so they don't have to do that.
You know what it
Go ahead.
You know what it looks like when men sell their bodies when they have nothing left and no means of taking care of themselves? Military service. And in some respect, I'm being a little facetious because that's not the only reason people go into the military.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, men have
go.
to sell their bodies at the threat of death.
Mm-hmm.
But women can sell themselves. You know, I mean, this is why we saw a movement in terms of OnlyFans. Where in the world have you seen a movement where women can actually, in the midst of poverty, go make money just masturbating on camera? That doesn't, I mean, really. And then had the nerve to be upset at people when OnlyFans decided to step back from pornographic content. Like,
they did.
It was a crime committed.
Yeah, like you're infringing on my rights.
Right. It's absolutely ridiculous because most men know that we don't have a means of, I mean, you know, there are a few illegal things you can get into, but at the end of the day, if you don't have a secure income, you understand the repercussions, and you know that the only casual way of being able to secure yourself is, you know, you're going to have to turn to the street in a certain kind of way, but you don't have a comfortable, you know, way of doing it that from the comfort of your own home. That, you know, it's different. You can get on YouTube if you have charisma and you got to be able to entertain all that kind of stuff, but that's not the same thing. You don't have to have any talent to show.
24 Tribes just said that Solange was able to assault a billionaire on camera, and nothing was filed. Wasn't even mentioned the fact they blamed him.
Man, it's gotten to the point where women who've been arrested and who've admitted to being violent get to become spokespersons for violence against women. That's how crazy and bizarre this shit is.
Yeah.
And they're forcing men to sit back and to see all of this and to just accept it because they're angry and they're having, you know, this emotional response to, and to me it's just so fucking disingenuous. Maybe it's just single-minded delusion. Okay? I mean, this idea that you're going to actually save the world by distorting reality to fit your narrative. I just, how long will it last? When will we get out of this stage of politics? And this is why I think Western philosophy and the idea of rights, right, and freedom and justice and liberty, I don't think in the end it's going to be able to make our situations practicable, because it's all based upon the idea that the individual is prime.
Yeah.
It's all subjective. And so at the end of the day, there's no responsibility taken, right? There's no idea that I'm part of something bigger than myself. Everything is just about the self being able to actualize itself to the maximum potential, and only through what means?
You
The
want
very means.
you want me to read your super chats, Gigi?
I'm sorry, bro.
No,
I'm
I'm
talking, man.
asking. I know you're talking
No,
about. Said, do you want me to read them? I know you can't see them.
yeah, read them, man. I'm
Okay.
having technical issues, bro.
Okay. Ken, with a $4.99 super chat says, has the feminist pendulum swung too far? Has the forces like the manosphere and economic, fiscal, monetary limitations become pushing it back the other way?
I think to some degree, the feminist pendulum has swung too far. I think it has. Okay, like in the area of domestic violence, is going too far. Okay, when you have women who are threatening scholars, family members with bombs because they're putting forth research that runs counter to the narrative pushed by feminists, that's a little contradictory, don't you think?
I think so. Okay, we
I
got
mean,
a
how can you advocate for protection against violence, but at the same time use violence against people who are just doing research? We're not even talking about people who have been known to commit acts of violence. We're just talking about people who are doing research on the subject matter of domestic violence.
okay.
That has a different opinion, right?
Uh,
Or reach different conclusions than they do.
okay, I got another one from. We got a few. I'm gonna try to catch up with them and give people these acknowledgement. I say Chandra S. Afsel says, as a nurse, I feel outside many of the tragedies of the pandemic because the money keeps coming. Okay, I heard that.
Yeah, so either you can take this one way or the other. First of all,
Uh,
men are dying more than women are dying related to this virus. Now, I don't know if the Delta version of this virus is, becoming more increasingly toxic to women, but we do know that by and large, this virus makes men suffer more acutely. That's something we know. Okay.
yeah,
And we know that black men are suffering more acutely than other groups of men.
they're more vulnerable. Yeah.
They're more vulnerable to die from this virus because they have a whole bunch of underlying health conditions to begin with. And
Yeah,
then
Michael J. White's son died at 38 because he had, he's on the streets and had the underlying health conditions. So yeah.
and so who's really suffering? Like, you're making big ass bank if you're working as a nurse right now.
Oh yeah.
I guarantee you, man, they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
Mm-hmm.
150, 175.
Yep. Yep.
Putting in overtime.
Yep. And
Okay.
getting hazard pay for working in those wards.
I guarantee it. It's the same as men who are electricians working during ice storms, working around the clock in adverse conditions. It's no different. But I mean, it's insulting to say that women are taking up the lion's share of the risk. These are the occupations that these women chose. They chose this. They decided that this is what they wanted to do with their lives. Okay, so this is what you prepared for. This is what all this shit was about that you went to school for. It wasn't for you to just sit back and coast, and every now and then, you get a patient that falls through from a gunshot wound or, diabetes, or not to say that that's not necessary, but the reality is you went into nursing because you wanted to nurse people who are sick. Okay, now we got an influx of people who are sick. Do your fucking job and stop crying about it. And then, yeah.
And we got $15 super chat from Barry Little. Said right on. Got a $10 super chat from Black Wizard ADOS. It sounds like the doc is saying hypergamy is kicking in for women, and as they watch the government in crisis struggle to provide, and they are monkey branching back to the men through the manosphere.
But see, and here's the deal, though. the government never really gave them anything other than a Band-Aid over a bullet wound. They're
But
not really actually giving these women what it would take to,
no, right.
like what it would actually take for them to be comfortable.
They're
They don't
not.
give it. Go
Go ahead.
ahead.
No, go
Well,
ahead.
all I wanted to say is we live in a capitalist country, and I'm not saying capitalism is bad. I'm saying that plutocratic capitalism is bad. I'm saying oligarchic capitalism is bad. When it gets too extreme, when there's the whole idea of capitalism is about equilibrium, supply and demand. That new people can come up with the ability to provide a product or a service when the market is mal allocated. That's what you're supposed to be able to do. That's not how capitalism is actually working in this country. Or and financialization is at the core of it. Okay, this is not an industrialist, capitalist, Fordist economy. This is a financialized, austere economy, service-based economy. And too few people have too much bread, man. And the idea is, why do the masses of people accept it? Why?
Yeah, especially women like her, because she accepts it. Okay, we got Chandri with another $4.99 super chat. Winter is coming, so let Atlas shrug. Let's see what else we got.
Let me just quickly add in what I was going to say a moment ago, though, is we got to keep in mind the reason they went to government, even though it didn't offer them anything, that is widespread and material as you would think, is because the precedent is what was important, and they're trying to advance from there based on the precedent. If the government will claim responsibility for keeping women's feet off the ground, they can build on that. If it has to rely on the individual men in their lives, they have to perform and compete for those men, and that requires a degree of individual accountability that they do not want to be. They don't want it to have to deal with any longer. So even though you're right, it wasn't substantive in terms of what they got from government, it was the precedent, and it was widespread, and they don't have to do much to get it. All they have to do is exist, maybe have a child. You know what I mean?
And that's an issue to me, because that's why I showed that video a long time ago. Has the women's movement has it been a disaster? Right? And then you got like these second wave feminists. I mean, the people who really actually, what elite the launch pad, to use the best word I can think of, they are the ones that kicked this stuff off. Okay. And they were defending it against people who already were saying, look, here are the unforeseen consequences of your actions. Okay. What about family? You're fracturing family. You think the government is going to be able to create bureaucracies to better help educate your children and you? Right? Do you think that these impersonal, bureaucracies are going to actually care about and make sure that you're taken care of? They're not going to do it. This culture is on the verge of collapse, and you're going to get more disaster. This whole notion of disaster, patriarchy, and their response to it is going to lead us to a greater disaster. I guarantee it.
Yeah. Okay. Dirty Jazz Music with a $15 super chat. Seditious talk here, gentlemen. Thank you. This is a revolution. And the last one we have so far is from the habitual line stepper himself, Black Men Being Brutally Honest, with a $5 super chat saying salute.
Salute to you, Black Man Being Brutally Honest, man. Salute. I need to chop it up with y'all, man. One day, man. Come over to holler at you over on the channel.
You got to put the chicken and spaghetti down, man, and come chop it up with us, man.
Man, I'm gonna get out there more often, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just try to stay out of people's way, man. Sometimes, man, it ain't like me trying to be antisocial, or not saying I don't, appreciate you guys' content. I just don't want to get on there and start talking and everybody start being quiet, or somebody, feel like I'm trying to take over some shit.
That's what you're here for, man. You're supposed to be teaching us. So, and when the teacher's is giving us the word, man, people supposed to be quiet. So don't take it as us pulling back. You know, that's
I
why
don't
you're
know.
here.
I don't know nothing. No way, man. I'm just, you know, I don't know nothing. No way.
Anyway, continue, man. Continue. Do you want me to play some more?
Yeah, play some more, man.
All right.
Or that no government actually thought about this in thinking about their plans for lockdown. And I think we're also seeing just the outrage that is added to that many governments have reduced funding for shelters at the exact moment they were most needed. Like it's very true throughout Europe and the US. In the UK, providers have said that the crisis has exacerbated a lack of access to services for migrant and Black, Asian, and minority ethnic women. And organizations working with those communities say that persistent inequality leads to additional difficulties in accessing services such as education, healthcare, and disaster relief remotely. Then, if we look at jobs, okay, in the US, more than 5 million women's jobs were lost between the start of the pandemic and November 2020. Because much of the work that women do requires physical contact with the public, restaurants, stores, childcare, healthcare settings. Those were the first to go. And then again, there's the lack of childcare options, which have left many women unable to return to their jobs. By the way, having children does not affect men at all in the same way. And the rate of unemployment, for example, for Black and Latino women in the US was high before the virus, but it's now even higher. And that situation is amplified in countries like India, where an activist there told me,
yeah, pause that shit, man. Like,
yeah, like fathers, like fathers that have these children, it doesn't affect them. Where the hell do these? You know, no, I'm gonna cuss, man. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, cuss. This is Gigi channel.
Man, where do these white bitches get off, man, thinking that that fathers are not involved with their children, especially during a crisis, man? I know, because I had my grandson, right, filling in because my daughter had to go to work, right? I had my grandson sitting up, in class every day, man, while she went to work, man. I know that even women that had divorced their fathers, right, divorced their husbands, right, were sending or actually alternating days so each one of them could go to work, where the child would be with the father, and then when they couldn't be with the father, would be with the mother. So this bullshit that it didn't affect men at all. Okay, where did their blood soaked Gucci boots, man, over the fence of oppression, man? There they go again. A privileged white lesbian saying that childcare doesn't affect men. Come on.
She doesn't give a fuck about us. She has no empathy for men. I mean, ultimately, she perceives I think her father abused her, some shit like that, and so she's got some issue, some daddy issue or some shit like that. And look, I'm not saying that she, shouldn't have some sort of, indelible print, on her brain related to something that happened to her, some personal trauma. But goddamn, man, like this truncating men apart from parenting is something that they did.
Yeah.
This is something you did.
Yes.
Because you didn't want men to be around saying what the fuck they wanted. Because this is now I can't speak for black men. I mean white men. Because white men had control of the purse strings. Okay. Black men didn't never have a fucking purse. Like black men hardly have been able to get these damn mortgages that these women are saying that they want to have access to on their own. Okay. And another thing I need to do, BGS, remind me to do it, man. This whole notion that white women weren't out making money, they might not have made a lot of money, but white women have always worked too. That's something that I found out when you gave me that article related to the Empire of Cotton.
Yes.
These white women were out working, man, but they had fidelity and loyalty to the family.
Yes.
Because they had to, they couldn't do it on their own.
Yeah.
Okay.
Second wave feminism was a class distinction because the upper middle class white women didn't have to work, but yeah, poor white women work, But the thing I wanted to quickly add to this though is when we have this discussion and we're talking about how the pandemic has impacted who, she's being incredibly disingenuous because first of all, the group that lost actual years on their lives than black men. Yeah. We've literally lost the most years on our lives just from the last year alone. in regard to the pandemic. No other
Yep.
group. He
Yep.
hasn't
Yep.
said anything about that.
And when white men were second, okay, no, I didn't see any females in that list. And the vast majority of people that died in the pandemic were men, and mostly white men, but were actually men.
They were men. Exactly.
So I think ultimately what you're seeing is this is feminism is the politics of recognition. This is all this shit is. It's competition over what the government is supposed to allocate resources to. Some people call it interest group pluralism, but it's identity politics, and it's all centered around recognize me and what I'm going through and allocate and dish off resources to me. Fuck them. Okay? Give it to me or give it to people like me. I've artificially created this cleavage point, men, women, which is artificial. These, especially these privileged ass white women, they never ever even dared to cleave themselves apart from white men when the shit was good
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
at
Mm-hmm.
all.
Yeah.
Period. Then they used the plight of black folks in America as a means by which to write themselves in to financial gains right after the civil rights era, post civil rights. Okay. They are the biggest beneficiaries of affirmative action. They are the most educated group of people in the country at the current moment. Okay. They live longer than anybody else. They have absolute control over the fucking family because at any moment they can cleave themselves apart from it and say, okay, the children are my satellites, not yours. You don't have any impact over them the way I do. You just saw
Yeah.
it. You saw it said right there.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Yeah.
the mothers. They're essential. Men are serfs, beta male orbiters to serve their fucking desires.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
this, at some point, it's like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah. Yeah. And when the lockdowns came, right? Nobody made these women shelter with these men. They
No.
volunteered. They looked for men to shelter with. They volunteered for this. So now she's acting like these women were forced to shelter with their husbands or shelter with their
Well,
boyfriends.
and it's
Yeah,
an
like
it's an
it's
old second
compulsory.
wave, but it's an old second wave idea that marriage is a prison. But do you
Mm-hmm.
want to know the ultimate piece of evidence that refutes her argument in that regard? Look
Mm-hmm.
at the divorce rates in the last year.
Mm.
If
Yeah.
women were trapped, you
Yeah.
wouldn't see an increase in divorce.
And
They're
divorce rates.
not
That's right.
trapped. They're free to leave whenever they want, and they are,
Mm-hmm.
even though they know that unless they can find government, they can shame government to compensate for the potential losses. They
Mm-hmm.
have to negotiate with that man, and see that's what women don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Feminists in particular, they don't want to be in a position where they have to negotiate and accept on an individual basis
Mm-hmm.
the whatever the agreement is that they have to hold their end to. They don't want to do it.
Yeah.
They're
They
afraid
don't.
to be accountable to men in that regard. They want to be able to step aside, let government do it from a distance, and go from there. So for the last year, these women have been forced to deal with the men in their circle, the men in their homes, and they are they're exercising their freedom to divorce and walk away, but they don't like the repercussions of that choice.
They don't want to be accountable to men. To be
No.
perfectly honest,
Sound
I'm
like
just
black
gonna be
women to me.
I'm just gonna be honest, man. This
Mm-hmm.
whole movement has created antisocial behavior, and it's led to the inability to cooperate and to form joint ventures in life with other people. This is
Mhm.
all about me, my way, and it's all about, like, America, especially in most of the Western world. It's about fucking being able to live a life of conspicuous consumption as advertised to you by marketers and public relations departments.
Mm.
That's the fucking good life. To be able to do whatever the fuck it is I want to do unobstructed. Nobody can tell me what to do. You're not the boss of me. So the
Mm-hmm.
ability to work out a deal, to, understand that, look, I'm part of a whole. I'm not everything. I'm part of something. Like, there are benefits to marriage if two people can actually partner and fucking do the work. But if you got people who are antisocial tyrants, right? And again, I'm referring to Mr. Palmer, baby mama terrorists, gynocrats. How the fuck can you work out a deal with somebody like that when they have all of the negotiating power and they perceive themselves as the owners of children? Those aren't even your fucking kids anymore. That's her kids.
Yeah.
I mean, look, they even talk about the children that way. That's my kid. You can't pick up my kid. Don't they talk like that?
Yeah.
At some point, man, something's got to give. This is unnatural. But they and the disasters expose it for what it is. We have become detached. And this whole narrative about women just, being victim, at some point it's got to come to an end. I don't know how long. I don't know how long this shit can last. I'm not saying that terrible things don't happen to women, but you got to take your brunt of the fucking the weight that the world has to throw at you, just like men do at some time.
At some point, yeah. When
you
when
can't just coast. You can't just coast, and skate on ice like it's all good all day, every day.
You mean they'll be using men for surfboards?
Man, come on, man. They using them for more than surfboards.
Okay, we got a super chat from Reynolds, $10. Gigi, the muscle of the trio. I support your message.
Right on, Reynolds. Appreciate you, bro. Yeah, play a little more of that, and then we gonna dead her, man. And I know we get into the 2 hour
of women
mark.
there had lost their jobs. Then there's the idea of working from home, where women's personal space has basically disappeared. Their workload has increased triple-fold. I don't think we can overstate how exhausting, how overwhelming the pandemic has been for women who really are not getting a break in any direction. And we know that when women are put under greater financial pressure, their rights erode. I was talking to women who were talking about the struggle to pay their rent, that they were being preyed upon by landlords, and there's a new process known as sextortion, where landlords are insisting that women have sex with them in order to pay their rent.
Hold on, real quick.
And then, as you were saying earlier,
you know what happens to men that don't pay their rent?
They get kicked out of their place.
Please continue.
That was a quick cut, man. I didn't even feel that one.
And this is really disturbing to so many activists that I talked about. And I think it will have maybe the largest impact is how many girls may not return to school. As you said earlier, between 11 and 20 million is the estimates. And I think this will be hugely, hugely problematic, because we know that when girls are educated, they know their rights, they know what to demand, and they have the possibility of getting jobs and taking care of their families. And when they have access to education and they don't have that access, they become a financial strain, and they're forced into early marriages, they're sold off. Sex trafficking becomes much easier. I talked to one of our activists in Kenya who's been fighting to stop female genital mutilation there for over, nearly 15, 20 years. And she said the pandemic has pushed girls back into their homes. They don't even know what's happening inside those homes because they don't have access to those girls. And we know when girls are cut, when they're female genitally mutilated, they no longer have access to education.
Yeah, I want to just bring in Malala Yousafzai's voice here.
Look, just real quick on that whole feminists have been riding this wave for a while, clitoridectomies and whole. If you ever look up male circumcision on the continent, especially when you're talking about rural ceremonial kind of stuff, you'd be shocked. There are actually websites that show this. They literally show it. You'd be shocked how many of these men have died, have lost their penises if they survived. I mean, they're often being cut in very unclean places, that are not acknowledging, the kind of medical environment that one needs to perform these kind of ceremonies. But it goes back to what Gigi was talking about at the beginning of the show. The way that they can cherry pick an issue that affects men and women is mind blowing. Yeah. But if you don't believe me, go look up botched circumcision, look up circumcision in Africa, and really research what actually happens to many men in these instances. And notice how you'll never hear these feminists talk about that.
Yeah,
And by the
And
way,
by the
man,
way,
most
circumcision is practiced across the planet in various ways and different traditions on different continents. You don't find that to be the case in the same way when it comes to what she's talking about. But go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say most men have, you know, male genital mutilation. It is what it is. It, and it happens when you're a fucking infant.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
We're
true.
talking
Yeah.
about somebody taking a knife to the foreskin of your penis when you are an infant and cutting that shit off. Now you
Yeah.
can say, "Oh, it's uncomfortable." Okay, well, how do you know if you never even had one? There's so many nerve endings in your foreskin, right? The
Mm-hmm.
same for women with a clitoris.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
same shit,
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
one we've
but it's
accepted
even
as
a
normal.
larger organ than a clitoris.
Mhm. It's
Yeah.
But
the
we don't
only
even want to
difference.
have that conversation. We can't have it. See, it's all about how you view things. I'm not saying that bad and horrible shit doesn't happen to girls, but I do this in the ethics class, right? I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, because I think genital female mutilation is fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, let them keep their clitorises and their labia intact. But let men make the decision if they want to have a circumcision when they become of age. Let them do that then. Religious practices aside, I understand that there's religious traditions or whatever the case may be. I'm not here
Mm-hmm.
to talk about that. Uh, but it's always easy to talk about rights when there's not conflicting rights.
Yeah.
Okay, as soon as you
Yeah.
start talking about conflicting rights, then the issue presents itself. But damn, think of how much nerve endings are cut off the foreskin of your penis in order to satisfy primarily something that mothers decide for their children.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
But this is
We got a couple super chats real quick. See Truth the Revelator with a $5 super chat, and Kron S with a $5 super chat. The table is being shook, and the terror of having to sell their the WAP box for a pack of ramen noodles to survive is hitting them hard. The bill always comes due. That's true.
Dr.
Go ahead.
Strange.
Mhm.
But look, all I was going to say is when it comes to what she's talking about, when it comes to female genital mutilation, it's the same issue as with employment, with homelessness, with no matter what, it's the same issue. She can only present the one side of it and completely ignore the other. And you have to understand that Black male studies and even what's happening in the manosphere is not happening just in isolation. It's happening to refute the dismissal of men and Black men in particular from a gender discourse for the last 50, 60 years. It's in response to the absence of a narrative of what's going on with men. So when we talk about what's going on with men and boys, it's not just to say, well, we're going to get back at feminists. No, it's to highlight what has been ignored over half a century. That's really what it is. But like Gigi is saying, it's not rooted in a desire for women to undergo injustice. It's rooted in a desire to fill in the gaps that have been purposely ignored when it comes to men and boys.
Especially Black men and boys, if you're
That's
talking
right.
about Black male studies. I
That's
mean,
right.
one of the things that I continuously hear, especially, and I'm worried about, men in America, Black men who live, die, and have to, do whatever it is that they're doing while they're living. I'm worried about Black men here, right, and the condition that they're in. And not that I'm not worried about Black men elsewhere, but I am particularly worried about what's going on with Black men here. This is supposed to be one of the most developed countries in the world, offers the most opportunity in the world. Yet we got like some of the highest homelessness rates, the highest incarceration rates, lowest, reading scores. It's crazy what's happening to us here. We getting shot down by the police damn near in larger numbers than any other demographic, and we can't even speak about it because to do so is taking away energy and taking away, attention away from more important shit like what's going on with me and my vagina. You know what I'm saying? Like at some point, man, this shit has to give. And
Mm.
only men speaking up and saying, what they have to say, speaking, openly, honestly, candidly, not to say the bad shit doesn't happen to women. We agree. Bad shit happens to women, but it also happens to men and boys, particularly black men and boys. Cut the cap, man. I'm tired of these people with this cap, man. That's all I can say, man. I'm just look, disaster patriarchy in a nutshell is the winter is coming, and now you need a nigga again.
Yep.
Or now you need a white man again, not an impersonal governmental force. You're gonna need to actually have to hammer out a fucking deal with that dude you told fuck you.
Mm-hmm. As the brother who plays the new Captain America said, bring daddy a sandwich.
Man. Because
It
men
is
have
what
been
it
doing
is.
shit for women all along.
Exactly.
Go buy me a purse.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? Go show
Buy
me
me a
that you
house.
Buy me a
buy
house.
me a house. Give me a car.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that I got X, Y, and Z. Pay for my hair. Can you get my nails done and shit? And then women are actually taking these gifts from men with no intentions of forming any substantive or realistic relationship with those men.
Yeah.
Stringing motherfuckers along, exploiting them from one situation ship to the next.
Mm-hmm.
And then men are sitting back like, hold on, wait a minute. This ain't like what I thought was reality. I thought reality was like people actually had loyalty and fidelity to each other. Because that's what women typically come into these relationships saying. I don't want to have a, fuck ship. I want to have, I mean, this is most women now. I ain't talking about all women. There are some women who don't give a damn. Like, I ain't trying to be tied down and saddled down. Most of these women don't come into these relationships with men like that. They want monogamous relationships that they can then monkey branch from one to another endlessly. And it's like this is something that works for women. It doesn't work for men, especially when your children are taken away from you, especially when the relationship ends, it's often on bad terms. You know what I'm saying? Where all of the negative energy in the relationship is dumped off on the man. You know what I'm saying? At some point, the counter narrative has to be exposed. It has to be brought to light. And yeah, black men are mad. We're pissed the fuck off because we're the ones bearing the brunt of this shit more so than these other demographics of men. Because we actually are like doing a lot worse than a lot of other groups of men in the United States. And it ain't for a lack of trying. We've been busting our ass off. We some of the biggest hustlers in the world. Black men in America are most inventive, most actually acclimated to being just in relation to the claims women make against us. But we still get typecast as Mr. from the color purple, man. I'm just so tired of this crazy shit, bro. It's like you can't get ahead because you can't even get a word in. Because these women are interested in keeping this narrative going. They will not stop it, bro. They're gonna ride this horse till that motherfucker breaks. And then when it breaks, they're gonna go to some other shit. Watch what I'm telling you. I don't even know what the next shit gonna be.
Your guess is good as mine. I don't think there is another one. I think it's to
Shit,
go back
nuclear
to
patriarchy. They're gonna come up with some
yeah,
shit.
they're gonna get back to good old fashioned patriarchy at the end of the day.
You can't get rid of men. You just can't get rid of us.
I
Unless
don't
you
think
can come up, there's
I don't
no
think
fucking way.
I don't think they're trying to get rid of men. They're trying to beg men to do more.
I mean, it's an interesting bifurcation, right? Because in the family and women like V were part of the movement to do this. They wanted to have patriarchy, but they wanted it under their control, right? So at the end of the day, with the family, they had this idea that they're going to practice this kind of one-way traditionalism. You know, men still provide, men still protect, women do whatever the fuck they want to, and that's supposed to be the new arrangement. And it took 50 years for men to say, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not getting anything out of this. You want me to go out? I mean, I've had these experiences. I've met women who within a couple of months of meeting them would tell me, look, I need you to buy me a $900,000 house. You know, and
The
take me
audacity of some of these motherfuckers, like, I would never ask a woman the shit that has been asked of me to do and to furnish for women. It's to me, given the cultural context and the whole shit I was learning from feminism, is antithetical to what these women actually want. Like, buy me a car.
But
Are
that's
you
what I'm
fucking
talking about, though.
serious,
But
motherfucker?
here's
Like,
the thing. But let me just finish this before I lose my train of thought, and I'll let you get. All I was gonna say is, at the end of the day, they don't want to completely deny traditionalism because they still want men to provide these things. They just want to be off the hook from having to do anything. Do you know how many arguments I've had to get a fucking glass of water? I've had arguments about a glass of water, and I'm paying bills. I'm paying for cars. I'm paying for homes. I'm making sure that all her needs are met. Her feet don't touch the ground. And I have to
dog,
have an argument over a goddamn a glass of water.
these women don't. They want to keep you.
Represents to me. That's what she represents to me. A movement of one-way traditionalism that suits women. And to ask a woman for a sandwich is considered sexist.
Man, smile for me. That ass look good in them pumps,
Yeah.
girl. You know what I'm saying? Well, go ahead and go in that room and make us a sandwich now.
You're sexist.
Yeah,
What am I a slave, huh?
But you know, man, I had women call me. Can you fix my flat tire? So I got to get up, I'm kicking it with my homies and shit. I got to stop drinking beer, smoking cigars, sipping Cavassier and shit to come fuck with you and fix your tire in that state. And you got grade A, the gold AAA. But you gonna call me to do the shit.
Yeah, that's a village.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like, or buy me a car, or let me have half of your house. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, like, put me on the title. Like, are you fucking serious?
Yeah, I was just gonna read that from your boy DeJack in the comments. So my ex-wife told me to sell my house due to the fact that her name wasn't on the title.
Yes, I've heard that more times than I can count.
Yeah.
I want your house. I want part of this. Why would I put your ass on my shit? You ain't do nothing to get it.
But you want to be able to take it if you don't make her happy.
Or you move into my house and you pay the note.
Yep.
Man, these motherfuckers, man, on some bullshit, bro. Like, this is why men have begun to see everything that these women have advocated for so long as a crock of fucking exploitative gaslighting shit. I'm keeping it 100. Now, I'm not saying that women don't suffer, because to be born is to suffer. When you come out this motherfucker, you don't come out laughing, do you? When you born into this world, you come into this bitch crying. Okay? That's just, you're born to suffer. Now you're gonna have some good times too, but you're born to fucking suffer, man. But these people here, man, like, at least in other countries, they put them women to work, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, they are obligated to play their role in that society. It ain't okay. Well, I want to choose to do what I want. I don't want anyone to tell me not to be able to do what I want. No, motherfucker, you're gonna get that water. You got to carry that shit on your head for 2 miles. You got to go get that shit. You got to get it. Okay? Go get it. You understand what I'm saying? Imim, go get it.
I'm gonna name this video "How to Trigger a PhD."
No, but I don't mind doing shit for women if women don't mind doing shit for me. If the shit is reciprocal, it can work. But if you just want things because you have this notion in your head that men of value are supposed to give them to you, and that is the display of affection or love or dedication to you, but you have to do nothing but act like a little fucking princess the whole time, like a demanding ass the entire time, is ridiculous, man. This is why Kevin Show has reached millions of viewers, man, because people get to see in real time the demands, the expectations, the delusions of self-absorbed people. And this is a cultural artifact. This shit ain't, maybe it's somewhat like this in other parts of the world, but I doubt it. I doubt it.
Well, I've been hearing from brothers, and I mean brothers in Britain, brothers and across the African continent, where they are dealing with levels of delusion from their women Most particularly women that have been absorbing Western media.
And that's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
if you westernized,
Yep.
we're all westernized. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I'm saying like traditional cultures,
Yeah.
I guarantee you, man, like there's nobody who doesn't have to put in some work. Even
Mm-hmm.
if you're a male on a farm in rural America, when the West and the, is being won, your white settler ass got to get out there and work. It ain't no, I don't want to do this, Dad. No, you're Timmy, get your ass out there and bale that hay.
Mm-hmm.
Because children are a source of labor. Women used to, the chores that women used to have to perform that have been rendered obsolete by the inventions of men, the washing machine, the fucking stove oven, the microwave,
The pill.
man, all this shit, man, the maxi pad, the tampon, all these things that have been created to basically remove encumbrances for women. I don't hear them even praising the men that created this shit. Now you got women, man, they don't even want to make shit. It's too much effort. And you used to have to make cheese and milk by churning the shit
Mm-hmm.
and milking cows and shit like that. And then, getting the fat off the fucking milk. Now all you got to do is go to the grocery store. These motherfuckers don't even want to go to the grocery store, man. They don't even want to make baked mac and cheese. They make the shit Kraft and shit. Hamburger helper shit. You got little girls, man, that don't want to cook, don't even know how to cook. The only shit they know how to cook is ramen noodles, man. I swear to God, man. And then they wonder, okay, well, why I have all these issues with men?
Mm-hmm.
I can cook better than the average woman because I put fucking effort and energy into learning how to do the shit. Anything that I do, I try to learn it and do it to the best of my ability.
Mm-hmm.
You got people, man, I don't feel like doing that. I don't want to.
Yeah.
Like, what? You have a duty. Where's your duty? I'm done, bro. This shit, man. It did piss me off, though. I ain't gonna lie.
It triggered you, yeah.
Yeah, it
Both
triggered
of you
me, man.
guys.
Yeah, it triggered me, man. It's triggered me, man. We at the 2 hour mark, and so I'm gonna let you guys close this out with some remarks. I'm not gonna even leave the closing remarks myself, man. I think those were my closing remarks right there.
And my closing remarks. I want to thank everybody for, coming in and supporting their scholars. It means a lot, man, because they're doing this in a vacuum, and they're used to doing this in front of a class. And you guys don't think that the $5 helps with things. The $5 do help because you know uh, they need to be supported, number one. But thing is also it means that their work is valued, their knowledge is valued. And a lot of times in this space, Dr. Johnson and Gigi don't think that the work is valued because it's not so-called entertainment. The thing is, it's very much needed. So I just want to commend you, all you guys for actually coming in, viewing, commenting, and supporting. Even though we couldn't read all your comments, we appreciate. We do look at them.
Oh
So
yeah, and let me say that then, because I really do appreciate all the help and the support, man. It ain't easy doing a show. As often as I do the show, I kind of pull back a little bit here and there. I got issues with OBS sometimes. I got to go elsewhere and do things sometimes. So uh, it is what it is, man. I'm gonna try to be here every day for the next string of days, though, for a little while, man, to give you some good content, even if it's just like I'm doing it now. You
yeah,
know.
yeah, we got 2 more super chats if you want me to read them. Got one from Black Guru Strikes. If a woman don't cook, she might as well be a damn man.
Mm-hmm.
And this is and Drew with a $5 super chat, paying tuition, and Akintunde Bowden with a 1999 holla. Great job, guys.
Thank you, sirs. Thank y'all. Thank all y'all, man, out there. Appreciate y'all.
Well,
Doc Johnson, man, give us some words of wisdom to depart with.
Is it sword up or sword down, Hassan?
man, I'm tired, man. I'm tired. This is all I was gonna say. I think part of the reason that I know that Gigi and myself, Dr. Neal, Dr. Curry, even are, part of the reason we get emotional and have to respond to this, is because this is conceptual violence. This is conceptual violence. It is politically driven, but it's done in a manner that only advances women at the expense of men, and most particularly at the expense of Black men and boys. And if we don't respond to it, it continues on as it has in the last 50 odd years as some type of social or societal truth that we all just have to accept. So when you start hearing Black male studies scholars pushing back, giving data that counters these arguments, it's not just an emotional response, even though it can be an emotional issue in terms of the intensity of it. And I say that because I've sat in these fucking classes. I was violated as a little boy by a man and a woman before I was 5 years old. And I sat in these classes in graduate school and listened to these women tell me that only women suffer from being violated. See, and that's just one example, but across the board, and that's what I've been pointing out this whole time we've been looking at her video. She cherry picks what suits women and girls. And that's frustrating to me because it's a level of conceptual violence that invisibilizes men and boys, while at the same time valorizing women and placing them in a privileged victim space, while pushing and advancing them politically at the expense of Black men and boys. And we're supposed to continue to take it, even though we are at the bottom of every metric you can find. We're at the bottom, and our own women, or at least that's the term we used to be able to use, are participating in this and doing so knowing where their own sons are, and still do so and don't blink an eye. So as long as that continues to be the case, we're going to call out this bullshit. We're going to challenge it. We're going to set it on fire. And we need brothers to make sure that you have your information up to date so you can continue to do so to advance the space for men and boys on your end.
Got one more super chat from no one. $9.99 super chat. $9.99. Holla. Thanks for the work. PhDs, paying tuition, BGS tax. Thank you, no one.
Hey man, I want to thank both of y'all for agreeing to do this. You didn't have to, and you don't have to associate with me. I know sometimes I'm a little bit rough around the edges, but thank you for being a friend, and thank you for being supportive, and thank you for coming with knowledge, man. You're inspirational to me, man.
Well, shout out to Dr. Neal in the chat.
Shout out to Doc Neal.
Dr. Neal, where you been, man? Oh,
Brazil, man.
He's in Brazil, man. All right, you getting there? Oh, you doing the Patrice O'Neal thing, huh?
Neal in them streets. He for the streets.
He for the streets.
The Brazilian street. He ain't for these American streets.
He all up in them favelas, man.
He took a break between sessions to come up in here, but he took a break to do it.
He came up for air.
He came up for air.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Dr. Neal, man. But shout out to BGS. Shout out to Dr. Johnson. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the Green Gorilla channel, man, and all my members, man. Both Patreon and YouTube, man.
Don't forget to become a member, because this is where you support the channel and support the knowledge, because trust and believe, man, when we go up against these so-called educated chicks that are trying to kick our ass, and when we come with 4 PhDs, I actually shut down a whole stream because she tried to insult my audience. I said, I have 15 PhDs that are in my audience. So how many do you have? She shut the hell up. So
you torched her on that one.
She shut the hell up. Okay, she could try to insult my audience. So they represent us. These are the generals, man. The generals need support. So anything you can do, become a member, because this is how you support the movement. Because trust and believe, Kevin could not do this by himself. Without the support of these guys behind him, he couldn't do what he's doing. He wouldn't be legitimized the way he is without these guys behind him. So if you like the way that things are going, the way that the manosphere and the Black manosphere, who leads the manosphere right now, is going, because they become direct assault of the Black manosphere, because they see that we're actually changing things, not just here online, but out in the real world. Policy is changing because of us. Okay. So if you want to continue this kind of movement, man, we gotta get behind it, because we may not get this opportunity again. I saw this this kind of thing go down when we could have got behind ADOS and the reparations movement, and we didn't support it the way we should have, and it died. I said this may be the only opportunity for black men to actually make a dent in this thing, because the opportunity is now and the iron is hot, and we got the people here to do it. So now it's time, in my opinion, it's time to move. But that's
Hey,
all.
man,
That's my
I
closing thought.
agree.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yep.
agree, man. Well, thank y'all, brothers, man, for joining me and spending your precious and valuable time that you can't get back. But I know y'all dedicated to this, man. This ain't something you do because it's a burden. It's something you do because you enjoy, man. But anyway, man, thank you so much for joining us here on the Green Gorilla channel. Until the next one, peace.
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 Peace. Yeah, that was good, man. That was good.